The sense in perhaps making like common sense is to really grab hold of what we're receiving, like when we're listening to a person, right? So the main point of reference is what we're receiving in order to apply to like how we feel versus what we want the other person to feel. It's a lot of practices involved with how we communicate with one another. Yet and still, the approach, even though unselfish, still has a selfish nature, as you have to get something out of it. The harmful effects is primarily coming from what you think you're not getting from it. So, for example, if it's a suggestion that would enhance your capabilities or function in life, even though it's something that's outside of your norm, you would go against it. It affects you because it doesn't resonate with the type of effort that you are willing to put into an area in your life that might make a difference. So, the point in all of this is that there is often not many guarantees, if any, to this life, this experience that we are currently having. So, the best approach is to learn the variations of like your ways, and the foundation that you set for yourself in life. I always use this analogy with relation to how we take our lives serious, and so that seriousness comes from a place of knowledge. And so if those who are usually moving on autopilot, they are not really capturing the moment necessary to enhance it or make it become true for themselves. And so often the impact of certain real events, and I use that as more of a quoted term, real events, tends to display the function of just the autopilot approach of experiencing life. So in essence, you gravitate more into ego's world, and it doesn't really harbor that notion of guarantee. And so I like this saying that um, Bruce Lee mentioned about being like water and flowing with the current, understanding nature and how that resonates with you with relation to the functionality of approach. And just like nature, we function in areas to where it's necessary for us to approach it based on the strength level that we've added to ourselves. And if it's not there, then we will lack in those areas. But the common problem is us becoming upset to areas that we never even often want to try. So there's a particular element of surprise in learning yourself and knowing that there is something different outside of the scope of what you thought, what you've realized to only receive based on your social connections. One thing to keep in mind is that being aware of yourself and understanding how that establishes uh, your tribe and your era of ways by what you learn from that self is important. You always hear often now the term of minding your business and how that could relate to staying in your circle of knowing or understanding and leave all else unknown. And it begs the question of how do we actually ground ourselves socially with each other if we all become just independent thoughts and or opinion. And so even in opinion, it tends to only require a selfish motivation, not much of a self-reflective notion of how, the golden rule of I do you as you do me, or as above, so below, in all the yin yang phrases of thought. So it's important to realign with self and understand the grounding that places us in a position to be able to be attractive, which is a magnetic flow of energy that requires that element of learning. And in often settings, we should become at some point more of the students rather than where we force our hand in becoming teacher. And if it doesn't apply, then we tend to just drift off into our own selfish ways to not be accountable or answer to the areas that could affect our abilities to grow. So, the point in all of this is to know how you see yourself in your lens and learn how others see yourself in their lens. And this is a very important part of the guarantee of living life, because at that point you would then learn to harbor the true flow of your energy or your water, as Bruce Lee mentioned. And that gives you the ultimate grounding of your chi and your aura and how it's dispersed and placed amongst the things that are around you. It creates your solace, your peace. It pulls those in to be able to translate the language that you desire. And so the best approach is oftentimes no approach. And sometimes the plan is not executed the way that you think it should. And so, in knowing that it should, that is the best approach, because then you will understand your ways in nature. So, it's important to follow the language and the experiences that we desire to seek out. And in following, that means to internalize, to now shift to what your mind already has made out for you, and then allow your body to align in spirit, which is the motivation, the effort, inspiration, which is what inspires you, what brings what you have inside out. And that is something which we all can attest to and often give our own thoughts on how that has played a huge part in our lives. And so be sure to follow that and be motivated by what others have learned with relation to you. Sometimes we don't learn much until we write it down and we see the reflection of what we are responding to or reading. And so if you know you, or we have to write things down to see the reflection of what we are trying to respond to, then that's another approach with relation to those that are in front of you. We tend to discount those that actually are telling us the truth versus those that are not. And so we entertain the ego in response to that. So follow your mind and lead of where that truth lies for you unselfishly.